Good thing I left the seat.
So we're gonna start off with some questions. So for our first question, feel free just to like popcorn throughout, like not like a specific order or anything. What inspired you to pursue a career in law, and how did you decide on your specific path, lawyer or judge?
I can start since I'm right here. So I am an immigrant, and when I was in school in New York City, in fifth grade, our teacher asked us, what do we want to be? And most immigrants pick three things: doctor, lawyer, engineer. And as they were coming to my table, I had to think fast. So I thought, I'm not good at math, so I'm not gonna pick lawyer or engineer. So not lawyer, I didn't want to pick doctor or engineer. So I picked being a lawyer, having no clue what that was, and stuck to it and went to college for the sole purpose of becoming a lawyer. And that's what I did. I don't suggest doing that, but I think you should kind of have an idea about it. But I was singularly focused on becoming a lawyer after I made the decision.
Good morning, everyone. I will say that when I decided what I was going to do, I actually didn't know. I graduated from college with a business degree. I moved to Pittsburgh. I told my husband I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and he said, why don't you go to law school? That's literally how it happened for me. I went to Duquesne University Law School, and then after successful graduation there, I clerked for a judge. And I still didn't know what type of law I wanted to practice. So when I fell into the prosecution area, that just kind of fit with my personality. It was not, for me, a thought out process. It was just something that happened for me, and I became successful at doing that. So you don't always have to know exactly what you want to do. Sometimes life circumstances bring that thing to you.
Good morning, everyone. So I think I was maybe 11 years old, and I grew up in Moon. My family's all from Aliquippa, and we moved to Moon when I was 5 years old. When we moved to Moon, there weren't a whole lot of people that looked like me, and I experienced a lot of different, I experienced a lot of prejudice and people that didn't necessarily treat me kind. And I remember my mother, and like I said, I think I was 11 years old, she showed me this magazine. And also I'd see other people kind of getting bullied because of the way they looked and so on and so forth. And I always had this this rage inside of me. I can't say anything besides rage, because I wanted to destroy all the bullies. I wanted to destroy all the people that made fun of other people because they look different or they talk different or anything like that. But as a kid, there's not much you could do. Anyway, my mother showed me this magazine, and it's called Jet Magazine. Now, all the old heads, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was this little small periodical. It was kind of like an African-American based magazine. And in that magazine, there was this gentleman, and his name is Thurgood Marshall. And Thurgood Marshall, he was the first African-American Supreme Court justice, and he went to Howard University Law School, and he graduated first in his class. And he helped battle to integrate schools and basically to do all the things that, as an 11-year-old, that I wanted to somehow do. And I didn't know how to do it or what path to go. But when my mother shared that with me, that became my inspiration. And I'm blessed to go down this path of being a criminal defense attorney. But I can tell you guys, just like Judge Henry Taylor, Judge Bridges, and Attorney Walker here, the path is a lot different than what you think. It is tremendously difficult. It's sacrifice after sacrifice. It's focus. It's lost friends. There are days of my life that are gone because I made this promise to myself when I was an 11-year-old that I was going to do all I could. And that's why I'm here before you all today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I think I was probably a freshman or sophomore in college, and I got asked to serve on the Judicial Conduct Committee. And that's where the students when they get in trouble, they go before other students, and they're asked to be judged on whether or not they should get suspended, expelled, or what have you. So I'm sitting on this committee, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'm in college. And I'm sitting on this committee, and I'm noticing different things. I'm listening to both sides of the argument. And I'm thinking, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And then afterwards, the professor came up to me and goes, you know what, you should be a lawyer because you really want to hear both sides of the story. And I always thought lawyers, if you wanted to be a lawyer, you want to argue, you want to talk all the time. But it's really not that. It's really listening and understanding and really scoping out what the arguments are and how you can decide the issue based on what the facts are before you. So at that point, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go to law school.
Okay, so for your next question, it's what are the most rewarding and challenging aspects of your job? And don't hold out on any details.
I got to think about that. I just was recently appointed to the Court of Common Pleas, and I'm in the criminal division, so I haven't had a lot of experience yet. It's only been 2 weeks, in fact. So there's still a lot to come for this position that I'm currently in. However, as a prosecutor, and I was the Assistant Chief Deputy Attorney General at the Office of Attorney General, and so in that capacity, sometimes you have cases where you have to really evaluate the equities in what kind of plea you're going to offer a defendant, and how are you going to make that person be held accountable, but also you want redemption for that person, because sometimes good people make bad decisions. It doesn't make them a bad person. So how are we going to offer some kind of remedy for him or her so that they can get their life back on track? And so sometimes that is a difficult thing to try to navigate. Just being fair and having empathy for people is very important in the job of a prosecutor. Also, there's a lot of times where you have families that have been devastated by some crime that has been committed against them. And so we have to, as prosecutors, try to be strong for that family and try to argue and fight for justice in that case. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way because you have these fancy defense attorneys over here arguing against what we have to say. So sometimes balancing that is also difficult. I could talk all day, so I'm going to pass the mic.
So I'm in family division, and I'm dealing with children, people your age a lot. And I have to tell you guys, a lot of the times the challenges I face are the parents. The majority of the people that come through family division in Allegheny County do not have attorneys. And the law can seem like it's another language. So a lot of my time, even though I need to understand the law, is basically a lot of being a social worker, in the sense that I need to make sure that in order to make sure I'm being fair, that everyone understands what's going on in the courtroom. So I'm translating. This is what this word means. We use a lot of Latin words. This is what this process means. But my most favorite part is when I get to talk to kids. I do this thing called an in-camera interview. And yesterday I met the most amazing young lady. It can be draining. It takes a lot of energy. But at the end of the day, one of the favorite things I like to say to the parents is, you, ma'am or sir, are not the most important person here. Your kids are. And some adults that are in family court do not understand that it's the children that are most important. So I enjoy being able to try to problem solve, which is probably why ultimately, like everyone has said, even though it is a lot of responsibility, we are able to problem solve. And the second piece of what I really enjoy about being a judge is that I get to be a leader. I was telling Mr. Jones this. I get to lead on a level where I can help to do things like this and help to let you think about being a lawyer or a judge. And so I'm excited to do more of that, and hopefully we'll be seeing you guys in law school in a couple of years.
Madison, could you repeat that question? It was rewarding and what else?
Wow.
Challenging, I guess.
What are the most rewarding and challenging aspects of your job?
Okay. So in terms of rewarding, I look at things twofold, you all. I look at it personally and I look at it professionally. Personally, in terms of rewarding, I don't get a lot of time to reflect, because I think that, I'm an old athlete, and I'm afraid if I'm running this race and I stop and I smell the roses, someone's going to pass by me. But if I ever get a chance to kind of just take a single moment to reflect, I'm proud of the sacrifices that I made, because you talk about being broke, you talk about, losing friendships, you talk about, all your friends are starting to get nice cars and nice houses, and literally I had nothing. I had nothing for years, and all I did was study. And I would study from the time before the sun came up and go home when the sun came down. And all I would do is maybe eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and shower and study, and that was it. But that's what I had to do to dedicate myself to the law. So in terms of personally rewarding, I feel good that those sacrifices paid off. In terms of professionally rewarding, our business is a strange business because, like Judge Bridges just said, she was a fabulous prosecutor. I had a lot of cases with her. In fact, she's one of the best I've ever dealt with in my 21 years of practicing law. If I had something, I would go to Judge Bridges when she was a DA and talk to her about it. The tough part is that you're dealing with people that are hurt, seriously hurt. And it's tough you're zealously advocating for your client under the Constitution. That's what makes this country so fabulous, because everyone has a right under the Constitution. But you also have to realize that on the other side, someone was seriously injured. And I'll share a quick story with you, and this kind of blends into the challenging. So I'm a trial attorney. That means I go to trial a lot. I handle a lot of homicides. A homicide is basically when one person kills another. So years ago, this was in 2008-ish, I handled this case, and it was a homicide. And when they put the person on the screen that had passed away, I remember in the courtroom, the person's family was there, and they started crying. And I wanted to just crawl under the table. I felt so bad for them. And then after I got done from being under the table, I wanted to go and give them a hug and console them. Now remember, I'm defending the person that allegedly did that to their family member, okay? So anyway, we try the case. First time we try it, it's called a hung jury. 11 people voted to convict my guy. One person said not guilty. So you have to try the case again, because there wasn't a final, it's called disposition. I tried the case again. I got a not guilty verdict, I think in 45 minutes. Okay? Now let's turn the page. I'm walking into court. This had to be a couple months later. And these three guys approach me. And they approached me in kind of a menacing manner. It wasn't like a friendly, hey, it was menacing. So then one guy steps up and he goes, hey, I'm such and such. And I remembered the name because he's the father of the victim from my homicide. So right there, I thought these guys were going to jump me in court. I thought we were going to have to fight. They said to me, you did a great job. We'd like your business card. We'd like you to represent our sister.
Wow.
So right there, it was, I remember just thinking to myself, my God, it was so rewarding because they respected that I did my job to the best of my ability, and I didn't in any way make their son's name, I didn't bring down their son's name. So I would say that's my most rewarding, and in terms of my most challenging as well.
I think for me, the most rewarding is seeing a client that you represented and you helped out. Maybe they made a bad decision. You helped them out, and you see them later on and they're progressing in life. Hey, you remember me? I'm like, nah. And they're like, well, I got this underage drinking. You helped me out. Now I'm a CPA, or now I'm in law school. That's the most rewarding. The most challenging is that in our business, the people with the least amount of knowledge have the loudest voices. And your clients tend to listen to the people with the loudest voices. What do I mean by that? Sometimes your clients are incarcerated, and constantly there's other people in their ear telling them, hey, do this, do this. And I'm thinking to myself, did they have the same thing on that you had on when they told you that? And if so, if it did work for them, why do you think it's going to work for you? But then they'll come to you with that information, like, yeah, so-and-so in the jail told me this. Why don't we try this? I'm like, what do I know? You know everything. Or it's someone on the outside telling them what to do. And it's the consistent voices that they're hearing. And I had this saying in my law practice, clients are clients for a reason. They don't listen. They listen to people who tell them bad information, or they just make bad decisions. And it's tough to undo that time and time again. They're sitting in my chair in my office, my first conversation with them, like, listen, I know you're going to lie to me. I know you're going to do it. I know you're going to do it intentionally, or you're going to sit there and leave some stuff out because you don't want me to know the full details. I can't represent you if I don't know everything. But I have to keep telling them, keep asking the same questions different ways so I can get the full truth from them. And I probably still won't get it until the day before trial or even after trial. But those are the challenges, because in this world of technology, there's all this information coming at you. Most of it is incorrect information, and some of it's so incorrect that it's just downright just treacherous. But they believe it, and they'll spit it back to you, and they think that, hey, why don't you follow this because it sounds good to me. So you have to undo a lot of those lies that are out there, and that's the most challenging thing for me.
For our next question, what role do you think representation plays in the legal system? And why is it important to have diverse perspectives in law and the judiciary?
So one of my favorite phrases is representation matters. Imagine if you were charged with a crime and you went into a courtroom and no one, not one person in the courtroom looked like you. That is absolutely intimidating, it's scary, and that is the reality of some people in Allegheny County. The same thing for other types of cases. You have a landlord-tenant case, somebody's trying to kick you out of your home and you go into the court system and no one looks like you, no one understands you. If you add language onto that, we have citizens of Allegheny County who English is not their first language. They come into the courts. If we are not prepared to be able to have people who could speak to them in their native language, that's a lack of what's called access to justice. It's important that the court makes our services available to the people who need to come to court. And so it's important that we have judges, lawyers. Every person is important in the court system. The paralegal that might help the attorneys, that's not a lawyer, but they can assist with drafting things. That is really important. And I'll tell you guys a story about something that happened to me where access to justice didn't happen. I represented a lot of immigrant clients, and I had a Spanish-speaking client who needed to get child support. Everyone should be able to get those kinds of things if you need to come to the court. And she literally was told, because you don't speak English, you cannot come. So she was fortunate to have an attorney, but think about how many people are turned away on a daily basis because they don't have somebody to help them. And I was able to talk to court administration to try to make sure that that person had access. So that's something that I try to focus on. I think it's important that I'm here, Judge Bridges is here, and Judge Housey, and that we continue to have representation. I'm going to say to Mr. Jones and Mr. Walker, we need some black male judges, so I don't know what you guys are thinking about, but it'll be nice if you guys could think about joining us on the judiciary.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Once again, Madison, can you tell me? I'm so enthralled by the answers.
No, you're not. You're saying I talk too long.
I like the answers. Can you say it again?
What role do you think representation plays in the legal system, and why is it important to have diverse perspectives in law and the judiciary?
Okay, so representation in the legal system. I started my career as a public defender. And the legal system is tricky because essentially the way it works is that you have the police officers and you have the district attorney and you have the victim. And they're kind of on one side. And that's almost labeled kind of like the government, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then you have the defendant, okay? And if it's almost like the scales aren't necessarily equal because there's so much firepower on that other side. So if you don't have someone that is competent, that is empathetic, that is willing to fight hard for that person within the bounds of the law, within the bounds of the Pennsylvania Constitution and the United States Constitution, then that person will get run over. And I kid you not, you all, I hear all the time, clients will call, and I'm sure Attorney Walker will say the same thing, and clients will say something to the effect of, I always supported the police, I always did this, I always believed in the system, but now I feel a certain way about it because the way my loved one's getting treated. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It is tremendously difficult. Once you're in, it's difficult to get out.
That's true.
So that's the first part. The second part, tell me again.
Why is it important to have diverse perspective in
Thank you.
law and jury?
Okay, so I like to tell stories about my experiences. So years ago, this was I think 2019. It's happened several times, but I believe in carrying yourself a certain way because perception it can be reality. So you want to look a certain way, speak a certain way, so on and so forth. So I was going to Bedford County, and yes, I'm calling Bedford County out because they should be ashamed of themselves. So I walked in, had a nice suit on, had a nice overcoat, had my briefcase. I walk in, and it's like 2 hours away. And I see a deputy sheriff at the door, and I said, hey, where's the courtroom? Deputy sheriff looks at me and goes, the defendants go there. I said, okay, that's the party where this is that type of party. So then I put my stuff down, I look for my client. Now, my client just happened to be white. Who cares? Black, white, doesn't matter. My client happened to be white. I went to go look for him. I go down where the defendants are seated. And as I'm going down, this person comes over to me, rushes over to me, and goes, I need your name, I need your name. And I said, why? They said, because you're a defendant, I need to know your name. That was number 2. So then the other person goes to me, another sheriff, or another detective. This person goes, yeah, I was wondering why he didn't give us his name. That was the third person. Now, this is the problem with that. They didn't speak to me. They didn't do anything besides look at me. And from looking at me, and I'm sure we could probably decide what they based that on, they automatically knew I was a defendant, okay? So one of the people, they end up apologizing to me. She was a detective in the Bedford County DA's office. She apologized. Now, I'm the type of dude, I'm very direct. I said, you did that because of the color of my skin. And she said, you know, you're probably right, I apologize. And I said, think about how dangerous what you just did is. You are a detective here in this district attorney's office. You help prosecute cases, you help arrest people, but you automatically assumed, because of what I look like, I was a defendant. Now, the reason why it's important to have diversity is because if she worked with diverse people, she wouldn't automatically assume that. Now, the problem is this, if we're gonna be real, because I believe in being real with people, the landscape in our country right now is attacking diversity. It's attacking equity. It's attacking inclusion. So what that means for each one of you, and like my parents used to say, you gotta work 10 times harder. If you're willing to work 10 times harder, then you will get to where you need to go. If you're not, then you will be swept up.
Okay, I want to piggyback on both what Judge Henry Taylor said and Attorney Jones said. Even as a prosecutor, I have had the same type of struggles. As I said, working in the Attorney General's office, you travel to 23 counties in Western Pennsylvania. So when you leave the Pittsburgh area, you go into places where there are very few people that look like me. And so I've been up to McKean County. I've been to Elk County. I didn't even know that existed. And my experiences have also been that they assumed something about me even before they knew who I was. Now, I went into a county, I think it was Butler, so it's not even 2 hours away.
Right.
And I remember going into the courtroom, and I told the person at the door who I was. I gave him my title, Assistant Chief Deputy Attorney General. You know, that's a nice
That's a good
title, right? And I was clean too, just like I am today, okay? And he put me in the room with the defendants, right? And I didn't know, because it wasn't a courtroom that I was accustomed to going to. And so I was sitting there, and the public defender, I believe, knew that I didn't belong. And she said, I'm going to call out my cases, and if I don't call out your name, then you're not supposed to be here. So that's something that happened to me. I have a lot of stories of, you know, my complexion affecting my experience. I won't go through all of them, but that's why it's important to have people not just on the bench that looks like, you know, look different, but also employed in various capacities, like the DA's office, like the Attorney General's office, because I think it makes people more aware of the differences when you work with people that are different or that look different than you do. And so our bench should reflect the community that we serve. And so it should have more diversity. We should have more diversity on the bench. And diversity is not just skin color. It includes other aspects of the people that live in this world. And so it's important because we're also going to bring a different life experience to the bench when you're different. You're going to bring a different perspective to the bench. And so you're going to also maybe think of things that are happening to an individual as opposed to just looking at the case, you know, and just the facts as they are presented in black and white. That's all I have.
Yeah, I agree with everyone else has said, but to pivot to a different point when we're talking about diversity, also think about when you look at the bench, excuse me, when you look at the bench, a lot of the judges are former prosecutors. That's okay. Very few judges are former defense
That's true.
attorneys.
That's true.
And I think that's a problem, and that may be
It
something
is.
that
It is.
That's why
Mr.
you
Jones and I need to
run.
talk
That's-
about.
yeah,
And
we need to
I
talk
am a
about
former
that.
prosecutor, guilty.
Yeah, former prosecutor, and that's okay. But
Prosecutor.
here's what I challenge each of you to do in the next election cycle, whether it's for judge or whether it's for senator or whatever. Count the number of times someone puts on their profile, "I'm a former prosecutor, I'm a former U.S. attorney, I'm a former district attorney," and compare it to the number of times you hear, "I'm a former public defender, I'm a former defense attorney."
So that's why you should run. That's it.
We'll talk. But the reality is, no one cares about defense attorneys until you need one. And when you're going into a courtroom, you have someone, fortunately for us in Allegheny County, the former prosecutors who are on the bench, very, very fair. Sometimes you're looking like, wait a minute, you wouldn't have gave me that offer when you were a prosecutor, but now you're making someone else give it to me as a judge. I'm okay with that. And they bend over backwards to make sure that when you walk into the room, you're going to get a fair shot, and so is your client. So I just challenge all of you to think about that. If you're going to get into this field, make sure you have experiences from both sides. I don't have that experience from the prosecutor side, but if you want to do this, I encourage you to go to prosecutor's office and go to the defense also. Do an internship on both sides and see which one you like best. But you can do good things on both sides.
Okay, so the next question is going to be a bit more of a broader question, like impact type question. So the question is, what advice would you give to young people of minorities who feel discouraged about entering fields where they might be underrepresented? So not necessarily the same question, advice-wise, what would you say to the people in front of you?
Madison, go ahead, because I got to think on that one already. Underrepresented.
I just wanted, before I answer the question, I wanted to have you guys think about the fact that we've talked a lot about criminal and family law. I don't want you guys to think, and this is not intentional, it's just that that's what we do. There's the benefit of having a Juris Doctor degree. As Mr. Jones will tell you, he is a doctor. It's called a JD. If you go to law school, it's 3 years after college. When you have a JD, what we try to encourage people is you could do anything with that degree. You could become the president, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, I believe, and we have the vice president. You can go be in Congress. You could run a nonprofit. You can also do different areas of the law where you're doing mergers and acquisitions of businesses. You could be doing tech work. And so that's one of the things I just wanted to make sure that as you can tell, everybody's so passionate on this panel about the work that we do, but the world is open to you if you go to law school. And so that's one thing I just want to impress upon you. But from the advice piece, I would say shadow people. I often have students come and see me in court. I've had Neighborhood Academy come. I get the undergrads come, pre-law, law students. You have wonderful resources here. I know that all of us would be happy to have you, I believe. Come and see court and try to shadow different people. See what you like. And again, as Judge Bridges says, you don't have to decide. If you go to law school, it's not like other fields where you have to know you're going to be a surgeon or know you're going to be a vet or whatever the case is. With the law degree, you can explore. I've been in the DA's office. I've worked for 2 judges. I worked for a large law firm. I had my own practice. So there's a wide variety of things you can do. So that would be my advice, is to start looking into shadowing people, programs that are available to you for students, and then go wherever it takes you, as wherever your life may take you. So it's very open.
I would just encourage you to do it, because a lot of times people in your age, you're like, oh, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that. There is as you're matriculating through this school process, you'll reach a point in this process where you're like, okay, my friends are going this way. like Attorney Jones talked about. His friends are going out, they're making money, they're going to work, they're accumulating bills and all these other things. But you have to stay straight in school and stay broke for another couple of years and continue on that path. I just can encourage you to do it because the people who are your real friends, they will encourage you. Even though they're going a different direction, they will still encourage you and come back and check in on you. Hey, man, and they will hold you accountable. When they see you straying from that path, they'll say, hey, you said you were going to do this. How are you going to do that if you're out here doing crazy stuff? Now, how are you going to accomplish being a lawyer or being a doctor or being a whatever if you're out here making bad decisions, ending up in one of our offices? That's not where you need to be. So I would encourage you, if it's a thought in your mind, if you're here today, obviously you were interested, but if it's a thought in your mind, this is something you want to do, please do it and just stick to it. And tell your friends that this is what you want to do because they will hold you accountable.
I just want to say real quick, because I don't know that I have anything additional to say, except that even though you may think you're underrepresented in a particular field, do it anyway and do it afraid. Even though I have to, I've been appointed to this position of judge, I still have to get elected, and it's not my comfort zone. Politicking is not my comfort zone. And so sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone and do things even though you're afraid to do it.
In terms of challenges, so listen, you all, we're gonna become friends, all right? And I'm gonna give you a little insight on who I am. I don't believe in challenges. I think that's a cop-out. I think it's weak-minded. If I want something, I'm gonna have it. And my kid will tell you, my daughter will tell you, that's how I raise my kids. I think that we put these artificial barriers in place to allow us to take the exit ramp. I wanted to be the greatest lawyer in the history of Western Pennsylvania, and there's nothing that's gonna stop me. And that's how I look at it. So, I guess I'm a bit psychotic, but I think you have to have that psychotic belief because you will constantly get knocked down. My favorite athlete is Michael Jordan. I don't know if you guys know Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I don't know if you get LeBron. I
We got some Jordans right here.
Okay, we got some Jordans. So anyway, he missed a ton of shots. But at the end of the game, he demanded the ball. And I just look at it. That's how I look at life, man. You get one shot at this. So you're going to say, there's not many black folks. There's not many women. Nah, not me. I don't care. When I went to the public defender's office, I think myself and there was one other older black attorney. And it didn't make a darn difference if I was the only green one. I had to have it. And that's just how I look at it. So as far as challenges are concerned, don't allow yourself to be mentally weak like that. Go after what you want.
Oh, you made me want to do something.
See, I got to calm down. You got to see the real me here.
That wasn't the question.
I just wanted to add, there will be people who try to define you and tell you you can't do things. You will run into people that will say, how are you going to do that? That's not possible. I remember when I was going to go to college in Brooklyn, I was walking and I saw somebody I knew, and they're like, what are you going to do when you graduate? I said, I'm going to go to college. And they're like, how are you going to do that? Because that wasn't something that people did from my neighborhood. Right. Similar, it happened throughout my career. And then when I was going to go to become a judge, I like to tell this story about how a politician, had a meeting with me for the sole purpose of telling me why I could not become a judge, why it was not my turn. And people believe in turns. And especially if you're black and a woman, you have to wait your turn. And so they told me reasons they thought I wasn't old enough. They thought I didn't have enough money. They came up with all kinds of reasons. And I'll be honest, I thought about it. I left there thinking, wait a minute, maybe they're right. I'm just gonna thank God that I did not end up agreeing with them, and there was a good result. So I love the inspiration, but I also want you to know that if there is a point where someone does say, you can't do this, that you know that it happens to all of us. So don't feel like we did not have to encounter that. And I will encounter it again. I have no doubt. So just wanted to share that so you understand that we all have overcome challenges.
For our last question before we do a short Q&A with the students, I'd like to ask, what legacy do you hope to leave behind as leaders in the legal profession?
I'm
You
sorry.
want to go? You want me
He
to
was
go?
talking
You
in
wanna
class.
go? Oh, you were
talking.
Oh.
I didn't hear the question.
What legacy do we want to leave as
leaders in the legal profession.
as leaders in the legal profession? So I was talking to Attorney Jones about this earlier. it is my view that as a Black woman, with what's called, it's a lot of intersectionality. So when I walk into a room, you're not confused about the fact that I'm diverse. And I'm not diverse in one way, I'm diverse in many ways. And so the legacy that I would like to leave is that if you are in this position where I am fortunate, I'm probably, I don't know the statistics, but maybe 1 in a million or whatever, I don't get to just get elected and sit down. It is my responsibility to make a mark. And I try to do that with a lot of planning programs. Tonight I'm going to be at Duquesne for a program called Growing Future Judges to encourage people who are in undergrad and law school to become judges. I enjoy it. It fuels me when I have a bad day. So I hope that my legacy is that I have helped other people to become lawyers and judges. I'm not one of those people that if someone says, should I become a lawyer? A lot of lawyers will do this. They'll like, no, don't do it. Do it, as everyone else has said. We want you to become a part of our profession, and I hope that that's my legacy, is encouraging you and others.
The legacy that I would like to leave is that I want people to believe and remember that I treated people fairly. I was respectful always, and I tried to uplift those that were down, and I loved strong. You know, I really loved the people that were around me and treated them the way that I would have wanted to be treated. It's just a simple thing for me.
For me, I never thought about my legacy as an attorney or in the legal field, and I probably won't think about it even further. But I think what I try to instill in young lawyers, people who want to be lawyers, is that you should be fearless. There comes a time when you're, as a defense attorney, you're negotiating the case, you think it's going to work out, and the case just falls apart. And judge says, okay, they give you those 2 words, go pick. Go pick means go pick a jury, because I'm not sitting here listening to you guys argue. Go pick a jury, let them figure it out. And a lot of attorneys will hesitate. Like, I don't want to do this. Let me go talk to a supervisor. Let me go talk to another friend. Let me figure out a way how I can get out of this.
That's because they're not prepared.
They're not
Right,
prepared.
right.
And I teach young lawyers as a defense attorney, there's going to be times where things fall apart. There's going to be a Friday you think you got a plea. It falls apart. Just, okay, I'll see you Monday morning. We're opening statements. As a prepared attorney, you're always ready to go. As a prepared trial attorney, you're always ready to go. It doesn't matter the circumstances, doesn't matter the facts. It doesn't matter how bad you may say it's against you. You're just ready to go. You walk into and now that precedes you. So now when a prosecutor picks up the file and they say, all right, well, I got this case on Friday. Who's on it? Oh, Frank's on it, or Blaine's on it. Okay, their mindset changes. It's no longer, oh, let's see what happens when we get there. It's, hey, we need to get these victims here. We need to make sure the officers are here. And I need to be ready to go, because if the judge says go pick, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. And I need to be ready to go. And it shifts everything. And it's a benefit to your clients. It's a benefit to your future clients. And it's also a benefit to your reputation, because now when your name's on it, things change. People change. As Judge Henry Taylor said, when she walks in the room, people look up. People say, okay, I know who she is. It changes things. You want to be the person who changes perspectives when you show up and when your name shows up.
Well, before I answer, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Herring for putting this
Yes,
together.
thank you,
I know
Dr.
that he's a good man, and he's been an ally of mine for quite some time, since my older son went to school here. And it's very difficult. It's a Herculean effort to get all of our schedules to somehow match up, because we're all pretty busy, particularly the judges. With that said, once again, you all, I look at things, and I break it up. There's kind of like an internal dichotomy that I have. Personally, in terms of legacy, I hope that my daughter, my other daughter, my son, and my wife, and my family, I hope they're proud. I hope that they feel that I've done our family name proud. That's a big deal to me. So I hope that they're proud of what I'm trying to do and what I've done and what I hopefully will do in the future. Professionally speaking, I think a lot like Attorney Walker, who's a dear friend of mine, probably my best friend, period. I don't think of it much, because I'm so much grinding. I'm on the grind. I'm not, I don't have time to to smell the flowers and to think this and that. But if I were really to think about it, I hope that we can serve as an inspiration. Because not everyone, like I was looking at a TV show, and I don't watch any lawyer TV shows, but there was something called Suits,
Yeah.
Suits LA.
I can't take it.
And I'm looking at it, and it's like, I see
This is
4
ridiculous.
dudes, and none of them look like myself. They don't look like this guy. They don't look like this lady. They don't look like this lady. I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, it's 2025, and we're still running
Right,
this.
right.
Because I remember when my mom used to watch a show called LA Law or
Yeah,
something like
they were
that.
more diverse.
And they look like that back then. And it's like there hasn't been any type of advance in the eyes of Hollywood. So I hope that I inspire the young ladies here. I hope that I inspire the young men here. I hope that I inspire you all over there to understand that just because Hollywood is putting out propaganda of what a lawyer should look like, that's not the mold. The mold is what you want it to be. So that's what I hope my professional legacy would be.
Okay, we're gonna kind of open up to a little Q&A. So like if any of you have questions, just raise your hand and we'll go one at a time and you can ask your questions. I saw the girl with the little like purple hoodie on first. You can, like if you want to stand up so like they can hear you. Alex, you got it? Okay. Go.
My question was like, as some of us are middle schoolers currently and high schoolers, what can we do more? Like, what resources would you guys recommend
That's a great
that,
question.
like, to continue learning about your profession and how we can
You seem like you're
advance
ready for that.
ourselves in learning about it and maybe even continuing or pursuing this job?
First of all, that I got excited, and my friend
did.
Judge Bridges noticed it because that is an excellent question. So a lot of schools have mock trial.
Yes.
That is so much fun if you could do it. Also, forensics, which is debating and arguing, if you guys have that. There's a theater. Although sometimes I wish people didn't have theater degrees, that the lawyers in my courtroom, but some do, and I see they act very dramatic. But learning how to speak and change your voice, and I think Mr. Jones has been great in how he's told his stories. Both of them were great storytellers. That's important in court. And you know what the worst thing is when you see people in court, lawyers that have nothing to say, and don't say it in a way that's compelling. So if you can start learning those basic things about writing, reading, talking, communication, period. All those activities you could do to learn to communicate. And so I'm so excited that you may be one of our colleagues one day.
The only thing that I want to add to that is make sure you're yourself when
That's
you
true,
are
authentic.
communicating with people, because a lot of times, I do perform, especially in closings, but some people try to mimic what other people
That's a
do.
good point,
And so you always have to make sure you're true to who you are, because you don't want it to come off in a fake way.
Right,
That's all I have
that's
to add.
great, I love it.
Okay,
Do you
I
want
think we
that?
need to go back down.
Do you
No.
guys want to add anything to that?
No, that's good.
Okay, we're gonna take 2 more questions.
This is hard, because you're last minute.
All right, we're gonna go on this side because we already went over there. Now you're here first.
That's fair.
What's one experience or person that you took away from your career that made you really think about wanting to continue being an attorney?
They want to go since we talked?
Hmm.
One, you already said Thurgood Marshall, but that's like historic.
One person.
We'll pass it to Frank.
My older sister is an attorney, and she was a prosecutor in Baltimore
that's good to
during
know.
when they were filming The Wire. I don't know,
Oh,
you guys probably don't know
wow.
about that. But she was always telling me about these stories, and I'm like, wow. And like I would just immediately take the opposite side and start arguing with her. And we would just go back and forth, back and forth. So now she's with the federal government and working in a totally different part of the law. But now every time I have like a case I'm working on, I'll bounce an idea off her. I'll bounce a close. How does this sound? What do you think about this? And she continues to inspire me, even from afar, because here, if I'm not talking to Blaine or some other colleagues, you're always looking for someone who understands what you're going through. It's very difficult. For example, you're in high school. You're not talking to people in middle school or grade school or intermediate school about what it's like to be a high schooler. Go through class, go home, have activities, do this and do it all again the next morning. You're not talking to them about it because they can't understand it. people who've been there before, people in college, yeah, you could talk to them about it. They can appreciate and empathize with you. But people who understand what we've gone through and what we're going through, there's a lot of shortcuts in the conversation. We understand the code words, the evidence, the rules, and all this other stuff. And I think she inspires me probably the most. There were other attorneys who I looked up to when I moved here. You know, Judge Housey. He's not here today. He has a trial. He was one of the people who I worked in his office, and just to see how he moved in his practice. He was a private defense attorney. Then he was a prosecutor and a private defense attorney. And I'll watch how he would communicate with clients. And he was very authentic. And I love that about how you don't always have to be on as an attorney. Sometimes, you go into the courtroom, you're speaking a certain way. We're the same 24/7, in court, whenever. Because we've learned that it doesn't behoove our clients to be fake. It doesn't advance their client, it doesn't advance their argument, it doesn't advance their causes by being someone who we're not. It's always great to be your authentic self and show up everywhere that way.
Okay, we're gonna take one last question.
This is hard
Do we
to
have one more
pick.
middle schooler?
Okay, we'll do one.
What is your, like, the toughest case that you guys have defended, prosecuted, or have
These are good,
decided
smart kids.
between which side has a better argument?
Wow, that is.
That's a great question.
Very good question.
Personally, as a prosecutor, there have been a lot of tough cases, but probably the toughest cases are the child sex abuse cases for me. And they're difficult because a lot of times when children are sexually assaulted, it goes on for years before the child discloses to someone. And then by the time they disclose what's happened to them, there is no evidence to support that. And so you got to decide whether or not you're going to go forward on a case based solely on what the child tells you about what happened, or not go forward. So that's probably the toughest. And I think Frank and I had this conversation recently. In sex assault cases, there's a jury instruction that says the testimony of the victim standing alone is enough to find the person guilty. So basically, you could go to trial just on what a victim says, if it's believed by the jury. There's that part of it too. So that's a really hard, even though he doesn't like that jury instruction, it's still a very hard threshold to cross when you have no supporting evidence. Because a lot of times in sex assaults, there are no witnesses, right? Nobody, and a lot of times nobody is crying and, devastated or hurt physically. It just is something that just kind of happens. So for me, that's the hardest case that I have ever had. I've had homicide cases that are tough, but those are the toughest.
Let me just go in
Go
there real
ahead,
quick.
Frank. Go ahead. No.
I have to. All right, so like the judge just said, the testimony of victim standing alone. So I want you to think about the whole process. So she's talking about at trial. Let's talk about from the very beginning. The testimony of the victim standing alone, if believed by the jury, beyond a reasonable doubt, is enough to find them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But you had a preliminary hearing, they get arrested, they have to post bond, they have to go to the hearing, they got to have a formal arraignment, a pretrial conference, a status conference. Sometimes they're in jail that entire time, a year,
That's a
year and a
good
half,
point.
maybe even 2 years. They get to trial, let's say the person is not believed. Let's say the person had a motive to lie. Let's say the person just outright lied for no motive whatsoever, and they're found not guilty. What compensates that person for their 18 months in jail? Now, I get it. I totally get it. It is difficult to prosecute those types of cases. But I want you to think about it from this perspective. Everyone says, believe the victim until the defendant is your son. Or the defendant is your friend. Then all of a sudden it's, oh, they're lying. So always look at a case. When someone's telling you what happened, oh, this is such a bad case, think about the other side. Don't just believe what's being said right there. Try to think about both sides of the issue, which we just gave you in 90 seconds. Two sides of the coin. She's telling you from the prosecution side, I'm telling you from the defense side. In certain cases, I'm wrong. In certain cases, the prosecution's wrong. But you have to be willing to listen to the facts. Listen to the facts. Don't jump to conclusions just because of you hearing the charges. Oh, it's a heinous charge. It was so malicious what they did, what they have alleged to have done. Remember, they're innocent until proven guilty. So you have to wait to hear the evidence before deciding on these certain issues. So that's the toughest part is trying to convince the public that.
We are not going to be arguing about that. But what I do want to add is that we do have to look at the whole
Cut her
case.
mic. Cut her mic off.
Cut her mic.
I'm
Do
not
they have
messing with
ability? You want to take another question?
Okay, we're gonna take one last question.
Okay, we'll go high school.
So this question is for all of you guys. As a first generation American, how I have this naturally driven, I guess, aspect in my life that I feel like I need to be a leader. And how do you feel like I should carry myself throughout society? What is the key aspect you think is important?
That's awesome. Jeez. That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, what's your name?
Rowan.
Say.
Rowan.
Rowan, it's nice to meet you. Your question speaks to my heart because, like I told you earlier, even though I wasn't a first generation American, my family was kind of first generation in a place that didn't want us because when we moved, when we were trying to move from Aliquippa to Moon, the people that owned the house refused to sell the house to my family because they're black. And the neighbors were really upset when we moved in and so on and so forth. And I told you about that inner rage. All I can tell you is that I just stayed tremendously disciplined on what I wanted. I had an idea of where I wanted to go with my life, and I didn't want to let myself down. Like I say to my kids all the time, I say that you are the CEO of your life.
That's true.
So Rowan, correct? So Rowan, you are the CEO of Rowan LLC. And you don't want to look back on your life because it goes fast. I know. I mean, I remember being in high school listening to people talk. You don't want to look back on your life and think that you let yourself down. That's a big deal to me. You don't let yourself down. So in terms of an actual blueprint, I think you figure out what is the end goal and then you work backwards. Say you want to be a doctor. Okay, so now I got to do well in high school, then I have to go to college. I have to take the MCAT, which is like the LSAT for medical school. Then I have to go to medical school. Then I have to do my residency. So I'd work backwards to forwards, if that makes sense, because you want to have a game plan. Life just doesn't generally happen. It happens because you're well thought out and you're disciplined.
I would like to add to that. I think that's excellent advice. So I'm a naturalized citizen. I became a citizen after 9/11. I was a prosecutor when I became a citizen. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so I face those challenges of being an immigrant, although when people see me, especially in Western PA, people don't think I'm an immigrant. But it's a part of my psyche, and it's a part of why I do work hard. You talked a little bit about that driven piece that immigrants have. It was expected that I would be excellent. My mom is proud, but she's like, well, that's what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be amazing. And so the things that I would give you as takeaways of advice is you, first of all, like Attorney Jones says, see yourself, envision yourself in a position. That's one piece. Then start to prepare. And when you have successes, like let's say, for example, you become president of your school, and you see what you can accomplish, then you're being the part, like you are being that success that you see. And then always come, whether it's how you look or being prepared for trial, always be prepared, always be, you're gonna do that, but just be above and beyond. And it's just, everything's just gonna add on, and you're gonna find yourself in a place of success. You're already presented with an amazing question, so I think you're gonna do excellent.
And be prepared for the separation, because when you're going a different direction, you're separated from all your friends
That's
and
a good
families,
point, yeah.
and it's lonely. And you have to convince yourself that you're on the right track. There'll be a point where during that separation, you're getting with the people who you know, who your people are, and they're going in the same direction you are. But it takes time to find all those people because they're not going to be in the same school, they're not going to be in the same neighborhood. They may be in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. You meet them in law school or medical school, wherever. But just be prepared for the separation, embrace it, and just keep going.
The last thing that I want to add to that is surround yourself with people doing things the way you want to do it.
That's a good
Okay,
point. Yeah.
so that you can soak up their information and you can see how they have moved throughout the
That's
life,
a great
throughout their life. So surround yourself with people doing it the way you want to do it. That's
I
it.
love it.
And don't be afraid of failure. People are held back by failure. When I went to Howard University. I got out of there with 2 degrees, B average, all this other good stuff. And I applied to law schools. You know how many law schools I got into? 0. I had to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, washing cars with 2 degrees from Howard University.
Wow.
My friends were all going to law school. I kept going. I can't tell you how many times I failed. Failure means nothing to me. So don't be afraid of it.
I got another little thing. Some saying just came to me. I didn't make this up, I'm sure. I can't even give credit to the person that said it. But failure. They said, don't let the fear of failure outweigh your desire to succeed.
I love it. I love it.
That needs to be in your courtroom. A big old banner.
Thank you so much for all of your wise words today. It was very good to hear from you, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you for
guys did a
having me.
great job.